Back at some streaming for the week. Think it'll be a good day today. Just earmarking Monday as a maintenance and library work sort of thing. So I'm gonna get right to that. Before I pop open my screen, I'm gonna just make sure my files are open here and I can get going. So let me see here. We've got okay. I'm just writing a few notes for myself here. They'll be visible in just a moment. I don't know why I'm doing it this way. I just kind of am. I had a nice, it wasn't exactly a relaxing weekend, but it was a nice weekend. Just gotta shift my mind back into week work mode, right? And that takes a few minutes sometimes. But I think I can still use today and be reasonably productive, so I'm cool with that. I am cool with that. Yeah. Okay. What do we have? Okay. Save that. Right, okay, so now we can happily pop over here. Right, so today, and I can do here some of this. Right, so I have a few little things I want to do here. Clean up the org file for my stylo library, which is what is right in the middle pane here. Move the markdown parser into its own little file, I think. Create a test for the markdown parser because I'm going to have to rework that library a bit because there's features missing, features that don't work properly, and to test it would be, I think, a good idea. I was also this morning fiddling around with the idea of creating like pre-compiled web components that I could use in my documents that are produced by this file. So if there's time for that, it might be good to fool around with that, put that in there. And then if there's extra time, build a prototype piece for some quilt fabric stuff, and a solid for 2D and 3D functionality. I'm kind of starting to think that the idea of a solid for 3D is like the high level thing that I want to have the library work around. And actually, while I'm in this note for a minute, sketch for 2D functionality. So so let me briefly put a little thing here. For 3D things, the abstraction could be solids. It could be represented as a map or sequence of maps, nesting permitted. For 2D things, the abstraction might be concept. Solids need vertices, edges, faces, combinations of each. Sketches similarly need vertices, 2D, edges, 2D as well, faces, and combinations of each. Since 2D and 3D have many overlapping concepts, it is hard to know where to for example, curve and edge functions could work in both contexts, but cube doesn't really make sense in a sketch context unless you automatically allow projections, slices, etc. There seems to also be a need for non-solid 3D objects. For non-solid and non-sketch objects, points, guidelines, grids. Oh, that should just be its own line there. Guidelines, grids. What else? There's guidelines, there's grids. There are also non-geometric items, constraints, labels, annotations. We've also got things like what is a good example of a non-geometric thing? Constraints, parameters, global state, animations, maybe. Visibility, rendering, colors, that sort of stuff. Right, so in general, there's a lot of stuff to kind of wrap up effectively here. It's a challenging sort of thing to break it down. Now, there's a lot of stuff like there's already tons of pre-existing CAD and graphical things, which I'm sure have good ideas built in. So a lot of this I could probably just take pretty directly. But I really kind of want the perspective of the user to consider it to be a library where you work with sketches and you work with solids, mostly. The user of the library will generally expect to be working with sketches and working with solids. So make them central to the workflows and library design. Right, so by that I mean stuff like if you define a solid, you should be, as a user, able to just very quickly plop it in a renderable container that gets put into your document nice and easily. So that's kind of what I mean by that. Anyway, so that's a bit of yammering on a little bit here. Let me, since I'm working on the file cleanup here for a minute, I've just got some rambling here. Oh, here, okay. Create a piece abstraction. This is a fabric piece that a user creates with a set of points and a fabric CSS class. Right, so you would be something like, it would be like this. You call piece some list of points, and then like that would be an example of, I'm shifting gears. I'm writing notes to myself here. On the weekend I was working on oh, do I have it up? No, I don't. It was file work diamond point dot HTML. I was working on this on the weekend, and as I was working through creating all these steps and things, I was thinking about sort of the base thing. So for example, this piece here is piece A, and this is the real, like the full scale template that defines A. And so in a quilt pattern, you have this dotted line represents the final visual thing in a quilt. Like that, if you look right at it, you'll see that shape. And then this outer line here on the template is the seam allowance, right? So it's an offset. In this case, it's a 1/4 inch offset. But what I did, or what I was trying to, what I started realizing is there are contexts in terms of the diagrams where you want to show the whole thing with the seam allowance still existing, so like this with the template, and times where you want to show where the seam is consumed, so it's only the inner offset. But there are also times where you want to show this line that, like, you only want to consume one seam part at a time, and you might even want to do folds. So that's more than I want to get into today, but the basic idea is just that you define one thing, right? And you can either, pull keys so you pull key template of piece A, and then you call inner of A and stuff like that. So you can kind of take the object and pull out only the parts that you need to render only that specific step. And then I had another idea, realizing that if you were to literally just take every piece of a quilt and put them in sequence, right? If you just create a list of which parts are added first and where in some grid that they're placed, you could literally step through the sequence, and figure 1 would be take 2, so you take the first 2 pieces and then you just show them, right? And then and then it would display it that way. So the idea is a little loose, but you basically, you define a piece and then you define an entire quilt as the list of every one of those pieces and their movement, their translation and rotation in the grid that is the whole quilt. And then you can automatically get out sub-steps and display them in those sorts of chunks. So that's the idea. And the cool thing there is it would make, in theory, the figures a lot easier to produce. And then you can manually place annotations over top of the base at that point. So that was the thinking there. And I would add those kinds of ideas to the fabric extension, which I might eventually pull out into its own library, but that's all that this stuff is talking about. Right, so the points are the display dimensions. Example, a 3-inch square in a finished quilt is cut out of the raw fabric as a 3.5-inch square piece because the seams are, as a piece is added to the quilt, the seams are consumed as pieces sharing edges are sewn together. So this, so piece A, piece B at so piece A, piece B, edge of A, edge of B, something like that. Anyway, that's just random thinking. That's not that fleshed out. So what I'm gonna do is pop open this here. Okay, here, style. I'll start with the style idea here. So I've got style base. So what I want to do here, these here, this is the first thing I'm gonna do. I don't like anymore. So this is a tangling method for org files. It uses what's called NoWeb, N-O-W-E-B, where these names here, I can refer to those names in different parts of the file, and it'll basically, this NS style base, this text is substituted in here, and that's true for all of these spots here. Now originally I did this so that I could kind of control the exact output of the source file, but I realized what I actually prefer is this simpler approach where I do this. This part here I just have pasted directly here, and so I actually don't end up needing this thing at all. And the reason I want to do that is it actually makes things a lot quicker to block out and separate pieces of code as I'm writing. So I can do, like, it's easier to do this split, and since this and this are already being tangled, I don't even have to name the block. I can just write the code directly, and that's actually a better workflow. So I'm going to fix that up and get that sorted out for a moment here with all of these code blocks. So I've got, yes, that is what I'll do here. Just finish that up for a minute. And this kind of stuff is unfortunately always the tedious kind of thing. Right, so let me just step through it one bit at a time. This is not going to be tangled anymore. This is going to be tangled here, and I can just take the name out actually. Draw. These are used within the draw namespace, and that's going to be tangled into the base file there. Oops. That's good. Tables, figures, code, tangling that's good. Code, tangling is fine there. Hidden, let's get rid of that name. Tangling into there, no problem. Page break, this is an important one for printing to PDF, and this is not currently being tangled to. Hidden is, now page break also is, so we're good there. And the build is being tangled correctly there as well. So that's perfect. Save. should be tangling a lot of files or a lot of code blocks. 54, that looks fine. So if I actually go over here and open up source stylo style base, I should see everything here. Draw, tables, hidden, page break, draw tables, figures, code, hidden, page break, and the build spot there. Perfect. Okay, so that's good. I can close that. In the Mu theme, I didn't create this. Oh, this was Mu. So what I'm actually going to do here is see, I don't ever use any of these other themes, but I don't want to necessarily get rid of them. They're also not being tangled at the moment, so I can kind of, you know what, actually, what I am going to do, okay, so theme Mu, I use that, so this is what I'm going to do. I am going to double check, or I'm going to do the same source tangling thing here, copy that, do that, MIT license, I don't know, I might handle this differently because it's a big, takes up a big thing, big chunk of space. It might be good to like bundle all the license strings together and tack them on the end of the entire file as it's emitted. Or have them as like a link, a hyperlink in there, and not include the actual text with the file itself. I don't know what's better. So that'll be something I have to sort out. But let me continue here by doing this. Okay, so I think I've got it all, but let's double check by walking through things one step at a time here. And also base, I realize I can delete this source section now because I have successfully fixed that up. So there we go, base, Mu theme, it's a classless simple theme. I like it for its clean look and simple CSS. And yeah. There we go. Okay, source. Namespace has the tangle there, so that's good. Attribution has the tangle there, so we can get rid of that. Fonts, tangle there, good. Page setup, also good. Tables, blocks, good. Inputs, good. Grid, good. And build. Oops. That's good as well. So this source one I can get rid of again here. Okay, so if I go here and do shell, well, let's see if I could just open a shell here. Oh, I didn't want to put it there. I wanted to put it here. Let's try it. All I want to do is source, stylo, style, list those. We've got these awesome latex and RIT. They already exist here. So what I'm actually going to do is put a little note here. I created CLJC files for a few other themes, which are in the following locations. You can use them the same way, style, they are cleared from the org file because I have not used them in practice. Right, so all of these three here I can delete. So here I can just do source, wait, how do I want to do that? Source, stylo, style. We've got RIT, CLJC. Oop. Right, so we've got RIT, latex, LaTeX, I guess is how it's pronounced, and AWSM. So those are covered. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so works each. Right, so this I can get rid of because that note I made to myself. Right. The style used in, let me write it this way. Stylo uses garden.core/css to compile Clojure data into CSS. The CSS is embedded in the output file. CSS. The theme is ported from mu with a few base classes added for features of stylo specifically. There. Good enough for now. Alt themes. Okay. Perfect. That's style. If we go into the draw namespace, let me have a quick look here. I recently changed up how this went. So what I'm going to check is if I open here draw source / draw, there. It's a whole big file. 740 lines ish, or 737. Yeah. A lot of that is not necessary. I need to fix a lot of things in this. So the idea of the draw namespace is to wrap SVG functionality in Clojure functions. Uh, 2D / 3D sketches and solids should be abstracted further from the SVG wrappers. Right, so that's confusing, but I know what I mean for right now, so I'll leave it at that because I don't know how to describe it in a much better way yet. But right, so draw begins with a namespace. Let me just do a very quick scroll through here, make sure that all the blocks are being tangled like this directly. Just delete that because I don't know what I meant by that. This source has tangle. This source does too. Yeah, these are looking okay. This needs cleanup. I'll get to it in a minute. That's tangled. That's tangled. 3D. Okay, this is where things get pretty messy. Draw, tangled. They're all tangled here. Tangled is fine there. This is good. So there's a lot of functions that I should probably get rid of or fix the implementation for in this draw stuff. So that needs a lot of work on its own actually. But it does look like I'm successfully tangling all of this stuff into its own spot, like into the proper file, which is a good thing at least. So mechanistically some things are working okay. Right, so, oop, there we go. Oops, getting distracted on the with my other Twitch window there. That's my bad. Okay. This is weird because, like, thinking is hard work. And it's so easy to just accrue ideas in a library, right? And they're all half-baked and all intermingled and stuff like that. So it's important to think through it kind of after the fact and really pull out things that are useless, fix up things so that they're more separated. But it's actually, like, surprisingly hard work to do that. So this whole big chunk here, a lot of work needs to happen in the draw thing, but it is, pardon me, it is tangling correctly, which is a good thing. And this is tangling more code blocks than it used to be, but it's actually tangling way faster. And I'm pretty sure the reason for that is I'm eliminating the tangling with this no-web stuff here, because when you put your source at the, like, you have to, if you're referencing code blocks that could exist anywhere in the document, you have to read through the entire document before you can put the code into that block. So you end up doing at least one full pass before you can tangle things, as opposed to being permitted to just tangle directly. So I think that's a nice little benefit. I also realize if I do this, let me go like this and do there. Now design ideas. So this one, concept, pragmatic, let me do this. Oops. Workflow, ideas. Perfect. Style is pretty much set to go. It's relatively straightforward now. You just have your base. I have the base things, which I've added for specific things that I need with the draw functionality. And then I've got the Mu theme. So that's nice and straightforward. Draw, I'm going to tackle in a little bit because it's going to be a whole lot of work. And builder, let me get into this now. Okay, so REPL load, little snippet there. It's nice and easy. Here, okay, this now, I have code structure, sources, builder. Okay, let me fix the builder one now. Actually, draw is out of there, so that's good. Builder. Ouch, my toe. Ouch, my toe. Okay, builder. Let me go hide that one. This one. Paste that. It tangles into there. Perfect. Now I've got the parser. Build parser. This parser I might move into its own little library actually, that might, or its own, not library, its own namespace. I think that'll be a good idea. Then it can make its own little tests and stuff too. Yeah, that might be a good idea actually, to do them separate. Parser extensions almost certainly needs a rename and a new approach to the design of that. Transformers, I should say. This, wait a minute, that's tangling fine there. Transformers, let's tangle that properly. Paste that in there, that's good. Yep. Compiler. Let's get rid of that. Manual testing. Okay, so this was this actually can be deleted, because here in the main I have, and wait, let me double check that I can actually delete this. Yeah, I can. So I love that. Just basically Control A delete. It's really satisfying to actually get rid of code, surprisingly. It almost feels like you're just clearing big old spots in your brain, and it's just this whole chunk of things that you actually don't have to worry about anymore, which is really nice. And builder main here has to be tangled in as well. So there's that. Let's close this. Let's open source builder. There's weird that there's, well, that's fine, I guess. So there's stuff I have to clean up here, because I was fiddling around with Clips plugins and stuff like that. That definitely needs to be cleaned up, because it yeah, it's not a clean approach to allowing Clips plugins, so I need to fix it, which is okay, but I need to do that. But kill it. Oh wait, I actually need that. Oh. Let me just see that the main function made it in there as a double check. Main. Yeah. Okay, so the builder thing kind of works, and extensions, these are works in progress. I'm tempted to move param into the draw namespace, and I'm actually gonna be right back. Need to check on something. I won't be long. I will not be long. Probably gonna get some more coffee too while I'm at it. Okay. So I am going to get back at it. Just plugging away. Plugging away at cleaning this code up a little bit. So so for sure, this fabric one for sure this fabric one I want to stay outside of, like I want it to be not specifically the library, the stylo library, because it uses and builds up functionality that are quite specific to making quilt patterns. So it's actually a really good example of very specific intent, and it makes sense that it's out there. But actually, with that same logic, I've made my decision here. Param is going to be moved into the draw thing, and I can start cleaning up from there, because it doesn't have specific intent. It's built, it's ideas around creating generic geometric objects, 3D geometric objects with parametric functions and stuff like that. So it does make a little more sense to be included. Now, in the long run, I might actually pull out the parametric related stuff into an actual separate library and have the draw API in this library be just a wrapper for SVG. That way you pull in the stylo library and whatever extension you want, but they're separated. But for right now, I'm lumping all kinds of stuff in the draw functionality because I don't have clarity necessarily on how to best separate things out. So for the time being, I'm not going to. So fabric is clearly distinct. Parametric is clearly, or is not so clearly distinct. And unfortunately, I've got weird doubling up of things here. So I have to pay attention and clean things up a little more. So what I'm going to do is this. Paste that in there and have a look at what breaks, if anything. Okay. So extensions. Are clearly separated the fabric extension is a great example. It has clear use in the context of creating quilt patterns, but is not general enough to be necessary in the core library. Fabric uses many functions from the draw namespace, but any new functionality is useful in the specific domain that the extension covers, which is quill patterns in this case. For instance, the template function uses polygon and offset, but creates that only really makes sense in quills. Right, so I have to start being a little more careful with the words I use here, because extensions might be might not be the real, might not be truly what I'm trying to get at. Let's close the shell. Don't really need it at the moment. Okay, so let's have a look at the draw spot here. This is really messy, and I can start cleaning up a little bit of this. So the namespace doesn't actually pull anything in, it's just the namespace, which is kind of neat. The REPL load thing is up there, yeah. This is what I mean here. The actually, let me run this and see if anything goes wrong. Okay, so I'm in Stylo Draw. How do I? Let me see here. List all the functions of a namespace. Here we go. Let's try that. Oop. I'm using the wrong buttons here. Keys and its publics of Stylo Draw. Whew. Let me count that. Let me use the right form here. 98. That's a lot. I can pare that down because I definitely don't need that. I wonder if I do into a set if there's duplicates. And if I do count that, nope, there's no duplicates. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so namespace, we're good. We're so good with that right now. Containers. Is there a better name for that? They're functions that wrap visual elements like 2D or 3D drawings. Does quadrant figure work? I'm just thinking through this for a minute, actually. I don't know if I like this quadrant figure thing. It would maybe... Let's ignore it for now. Let's not worry about it at the moment. Right, so I have helpers. Let me think for a moment if there's a way I could actually simplify this stuff a little bit. Because there's kind of two types of helpers here. Right, so I've got here string helpers, and here I've got things that are geom helpers more than anything, right? So this BB center is actually that's bounding box center. Let me write a test here. Oh shoot, I shouldn't have closed the should not have closed the shell. Ugh. Let's open that here, please. And if I go list, okay, I've got test, nope, let me make sure I'm actually editing the right spot here. Test, stylo tests. Oh right, I should go up here, code structure, sources, builder, and this could also get rid of, which means this whole code structure thing is gone. Watcher script, scratch. This is garbage. This local storage thing is garbage. The build thing is not garbage yet, I don't think. ppm. I'm gonna get rid of this because I wasn't well thought out. Build. I'm gonna get rid of this too. utilities. Actually, let me change that. Let's just put it under the utilities thing. Yeah, that's better than nothing for right now, so that's that. So this goes hidden, design, style's good, draw we're working on like I said. And okay, there we go. Now we can get back to draw, helpers test. It's fine there. Right, we do need to add a test namespace though. Wait a minute, stylo dot draw tests, draw test. Sure, that's good. Require, shoot, now I forget. If I do notes, dev, file watching, boy, I need to clean up my workflows. Things don't make things are hard for me to look up again, unfortunately. So if I go here as well, Control X find dev rbg, that's an example. So namespace, there's the test namespace here. If I go test namespace, this is pretty much what I need to copy. So require Clojure.test is what it is. Clojure.test, refer def test is and testing, and R probably. I think that works. I think that makes sense. Then here we just require stylo.draw as draw. And then any tests we write go to test stylo draw test. See, this is going to mess me up if I do test singular or test plural. That's going to mess me up for sure. Let me just assume singular. Always do the least amount of typing. I'll just try and remember that. So that would mean the helpers test here is draw test. Let's see. Let's do leave that open as a reference for a minute. Let's make sure that it's tangling the way I want. $69. If I go load file, test/stylo/draw test.cljc 4. That comes from this, which is what I want. I wonder, there's probably a better shell that I could use in in Emacs. Try to find a better shell tool for Emacs. Save that. This I didn't change. Okay, but what I was getting at here let's look at a simple test here. Color tests. Right. Let's def test, and we'll call this bounding box center. Boy, thinking about specs as well, but I'll get to that later. You know what? Let's forget this train of thought for the time being. I'll leave that geom helpers alone, and I will have a quick look at this here. So I've got a bunch of string helper type things, and I need to think about how I actually want to write this, because using string like this is not necessarily the smartest approach. Right, because what I can do instead is something like, so if I do HSL string of 2020, right, I get this piece of string, but I could then do format, and format works by I forget how it works. Format and arguments. Wrong. Okay, so format string, yeah, okay. So I could write this as format this whole business HSL I think this will work, right, where this has to be apparently I'm more tired than I thought. That's my bad. Oh well, can't win them all, eh? Some days you're just tired. Does I mean integer? Oh, n probably means number. Oh, it means new line. Okay, I clearly don't know what I'm talking about here. So let me not do that. Let me instead do maybe this is fine. Maybe I don't need to overthink exactly how to do this. Path string. How does path string work again? So it takes a list of points. Let's imagine just a straight line that goes 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. So move to 0, 0. Line means from 0, 0 to 1, 1. And then a line again from where you're at, which is 1, 1 to 2, 2. And then Z is terminate, I think, which should be totally fine. But so there's, when I wrote these couple of functions here, I had interleave, but there's actually interpose, which is better than what I had. So if I do interpose a comma, right, between a list of numbers, it puts 2 commas there between those. And right, but interleave, I have to do this whole weird business where I do the list and then repeat the commas like that, and then it'll pop one at the end as well. So it's basically never what I want. Interpose is easier to write and does what I want. So I should really swap this out in this section here, which seems like an easy thing to do. So what I'll do is exactly that. So if well, actually, let me make here, it might make sense. String helpers test. Def test, path string, path string, sure. Def test, path string, test. That's not a good test name. Testing. Well, let me just start with is. Let's do the easiest thing. So it'll look kind of like this. Is equal draw slash path string. Let's just use this simple example that I wrote up here. I want this here 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2 1, 1, 2, 2 to be exactly this string. Where'd you go? This. So if I take that, plunk her down here, right? That's the whole. Oh wait, is should take Clojure.test/is form and message. So I don't need a message, but I should put a message there for posterity. paths, path string. Let's do it like this. Improper path, unexpected path string. All right, let's save that. Let's see if I can get it to work, right? If I do load file, test, stylo, draw test.cljc. Right, so now if I go namespace stylo.draw test, right, now if I run path string test, oh, I have to, of course I have to put it in nil. Let me just sanity check this. Oop. Okay. Unexpected path string, expected that whole thing, and you got that. Okay, good. So the tests are correctly identifying mistakes. So what I want to do here is rewrite this path string function in such a way that it uses interpose instead of interleave and doesn't break this test. Very simple, pretty trivial, or maybe it's trivial. So, but anyway, enough. So all I should have to do is change this to interpose and put the space here and actually just get rid of this repeat altogether. And that should be exactly correct. And yes, I still want to apply string to this. Interpose just creates another sequence, or list, whatever you want to call it. And then string, let me, yeah, so if I do it like that, maybe it's more readable. So what I realized too is I can actually no, well, let's save that, okay? And let's run this. Oh, I have to load the file. There we go. Okay, so it still works. So that's fixed, which is really nice. I'm happy with that. Can I do function with a name? Yes, you can. Cool. Let me change this. Function line 2 taking point. No, taking x, y, like this. That should still work. Let's try that. Let's load the file and run the test. Hey, there we go. We are on to something. So if I do draw slash path string and make a new one for myself just for kicks, here, let's do 0, 0, 2, 3, 5, 8. Well, if I formatted things right, that would be fine, but not the case. Okay. L23, L58, -10. Okay, that's working okay. Although let me reload source stylo draw.cljc, right? And now load this and run path string test. Fail. Okay, so something did go wrong. I was testing things incorrectly. Here, see this? Ah. Let me cheat this a little bit here. Let me put a little note here. Find way to do automated Clojure.test instead of loading file there. That should be good. Right, so the only difference here is this space at the end. So this I do believe would work just fine actually without the space. This is what we're building now, but what I thought to get was a space. But I do think probably I want the space. Let me have a look here. Dismiss that. Sorry, I'm running timers, trying to get into the habit of time tracking, so I could make some small lifestyle changes over time to be a little more productive and whatnot. So I'm just trying out this new app, and I'm getting little buzzes on my watch. It's not a big deal, just that's what I was looking at. Okay, I was yammering on about this space. So I think I want the space to be there, right? So the idea was I was refactoring this to use interpose and stuff like that. And I'm gonna change my mind about using this named function in there. I'm just gonna make it, because it's simple enough to read this as is. So I'm not gonna complicate things with that. I'm gonna leave it be. And weirdly enough, this will fix this problem. But I said I was going to cheat something a little bit here. I'm going to put in this namespace right under here. I'm going to paste this load file, right? So what that'll do is reload when I make a change in the draw file and load the test. It should. There. Okay. Now we're good. There is also, of course, if I do, what is it, run tests. Clojure.test / run tests, yeah. Testing. Okay, actually, talking about cheating, if I just do this, refer run tests, and then call it here, run tests. Let's see what happens when I do this. There, okay, cool. So, actually, I wonder if I can just go ahead and load this and go namespace stylo.draw. If I run load file here, will it work? Yes, and it doesn't change my namespace. So that is actually kind of a nice way to semi-automatically run the tests that I've defined, which is pretty cool. So I'm happy with that. I'm pretty cool with that. I am cool with it. Okay, so let me just leave a little note for myself here. When using the REPL, load file, source, test, wrong, test, stylo, draw, test.cljc will load this file and run the following S expressions in whatever test to run and display in your REPL without needing to change your working namespace. There. Sure, that makes sense. Why not? Right? So that, all I mean, REPL load, right, load this. Let me put a little, another tiny snippet here and have it called REPL load and run tests. Very simple. Clojure, load file, test stylo, draw, test.cljc, and that should be it. That's good enough for me, right? If I run this, yes, perfect. Sweet, nice and simple. I like that. Simple is good. Simple's good. Okay, that test namespace is done. Close that namespace thing there. Back to what I was attempting to do with this path string here. Right. I also realized this point string thing I should clean up. Hey, Lumi, how's it going? You can run tests with Cider. How's that? Let's see here. Test. Run loaded tests. What happened? What did I just do? Did that work? No assertions were run. Oh, okay. So let's see here. Man, if I could type, the world would be a better place. Usually would reload a namespace with cider reload namespace. Never typed in load file. Let's see here. Cider reload, ns reload. Why is that the case? I think I'm doing this because I was having problems with Cider not detecting the namespace when I'm in an org mode file. I think that's why I did that, but that you bring it up points out that actually I should work on cleaning up that part of my workflow too. Figure out how to use Cider for things like load file, run tests, see if it can work from within my org file. I think there's a way to get the file name. You can then just pass that into the function. Yeah, I think you're probably right. And that you pointed out is good. It's another thing to fix on the workflow side of things. I do know that when I was first getting things up and running, I was overwhelmed with all the different little nuances about getting everything working. So I didn't bother to fix that part of things. And then I promptly forgot that you could. So it's on my list here. Because I think you're totally right that you can, to get the file name that the org mode that it tangles into. The only thing I'm not sure of is if I'm tangling to multiple files, if it knows, wait, I guess it could figure out, yeah, anyway, it's something for me to look into. But you know, parts of me are lazy and didn't want to figure it out at the time, so it's in the notes file there. Like I always say, lots and lots of stuff to learn, right? Okay, so let's see if, I don't even remember what I was trying to do with this point string function. You'd have a list of files to reload, should work just fine. Yeah, I think you're right. Right, so I did the same thing here, where I don't, let me change this, interpose. This, I gotta fix this. This is weird. I don't know what I'm not sure what I was doing at this point. Interpose. Oh. Right, so for the logic of this, oh, I see. I was trying to get clever with things here. All right, let's leave that be. Interleave, let's leave that alone. I don't even know where I use this, but I'm going to make it a little cleaner anyway. You can spend years on learning all this stuff. If you're not doing it 100% of your time, it's really hard to get to a high level of efficiency. Yeah, Lumi, that's honestly, like, that's a realization I'm learning a little bit every day, you know? And so I struggle to balance the desire or my need to learn my tools and my workflow to an efficient level versus just learning how to write and architect reasonably good programs at all, you know? It's like, they're like both necessary skills, but not to equal degrees, and they're kind of orthogonal to each other in a lot of ways, right? Like, you can, in theory, write a really good program with really unoptimal workflow setups, right? But you can write more reasonably good programs reasonably well if you have a half decent workflow. So you kind of want some sort of balance between them, and I don't know if I'm striking that balance perfectly. That's hard to know. For me it is anyway. But yeah, you're totally right. You know, to a high level of efficiency is a long thing. Yeah, I get it. There are too many things: computer science, theoretical stuff, programming language specific stuff, JVM, etc. Workflow, editor configuration. Oh, then of course the design of the program and an understanding of what you're trying to build. It's too much. Yeah, Lumi, that's my existential struggle. We're talking over all of this, right? it's a lot of stuff, and on top of that, for myself, I'm struggling sometimes with, like, oh man, I'm self-taught. Like, what am I missing that's like actually really critical to know? And I'm just kind of appearing like a dummy who misses the basics, you know? There's just, the brain is sometimes treacherous with those things. Anyway, at the end of the day, what I'm happy with is I sit down regularly and I write programs that produce a useful output for some reasonable definition of useful. So I'm proud of myself for that portion of things, and I'm slowly gaining more and more perspective on the other things to try and focus on. But it's always a bit of a struggle with that balance point, you know? But hey, I kind of think that shows up anywhere if you look hard enough, you know? It is why most people work in teams on software. You're self-taught too, did study computer science yourself after a few years of doing things. Nice, that's... well, I'll take that as an encouraging data point, almost, a little anecdote. That's really cool. That's great work. And I say that, obviously I've got limited perspective, right? Like, I only know you and your work via the chat box here, right? So I'm taking you at your word that you've got years of experience and all of that stuff, but generally speaking, I have no reason to distrust that, and seems impressive. Very nice. What was I doing? Oh yeah, so I'm thinking let's just do the easy thing here for a minute. Point to string, okay? And it's just going to take a single thing, a point, and it's going to be basically apply string to interpose a comma between point. If I make that point to string of, let's imagine the point is 1 1 there, and then if I do different point string, and that's points, it can actually just be apply string to interpose space between the mapping of point to string of over points. Is that gonna work? Let's find out. Yes, that's exactly what I want. That's, I think, cleaner than this, but maybe I can go about it even in a different way. We'll see. Thing to remember is that there's really a lot of stuff, but for most real world jobs, projects, and things you want to do, 90% is not necessary. It's not to say knowing it doesn't make you marginally more effective. For example, knowing category theory, being comfortable with types does make it easier to write complicated functional programs in Clojure. Yeah, so actually that's a really good example. Category theory and types are two things that I don't have total comfort with yet, but keep seeing pop up in the stuff I read. So it does seem like, you know, if frequency of running into things is a good measure for what you really should learn, then those seem like two examples that would be useful. But at the same time, you clearly don't need to know it, strictly speaking, to be able to write Clojure programs. But yeah, that's actually a really good example where you do gain more effectiveness, but perhaps the gain is marginal to the effort required to learn it. In category theory, I don't know if that's true. Personally think that using them as first-class things in languages represented in code isn't necessarily a good idea. Okay. But those things clearly teach you how to think complicated, abstract, mathematical things in your head. Right, that's fair. That's a good point. Yeah, it loops back to what I was saying earlier, right? Where it's sometimes difficult to know that balance point of what to really learn and what to be okay not knowing and handling. But the other side of that too is, right, like, part of me wonders if I should even care always about quote-unquote productivity, you know? Like, I'm not convinced necessarily that being as productive as theoretically possible for a maximum amount of time is a worthwhile pursuit in the grand human experiment, you know? But that's such a philosophical thought that it's basically unimportant for today, you know? But productivity per se, yeah, it depends on your goals. Yeah, it totally does. You know, maybe that's a part of an element of my own sort of meandering thinking lately is the goals I have are a little nebulous or abstract in my own mind. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I mean, I don't need to start having therapy sessions on streams, right? And it's not like I have no goals, but maybe that's actually an element of my own thinking at the time, you know? If you want to build stuff that other people will use and things you'll be able to extend and understand even after building more and more things on top of for, say, 5 years, then you need to know more. Yep, totally. That's definitely true. I won't deny. But as an ad hoc problem-solving automation thing, definitely not. True. True. Maybe you should be aware of the fact that computing with floating point is inherently inaccurate. So you might be drawing out things from math functions that are just wrong. Yeah, so Lumi, I actually know about floating point stuff. I have another library that I work on, totally not on stream, where I'm trying to work around floating point related stuff a little more carefully. But I 100% know that floating point is full of those inaccuracies are a big deal. I am completely aware of that. The reason it's not addressed in any of the stuff you're seeing here is basically because I'm relying on the fact that all of the diagrams I have here, you can kind of hide the sins of floating point inaccuracies, with, like, these are all 2 pixels wide, right? So if you don't care much about the actual precision of this point meeting, then you can hide the fact that maybe they're not actually literally on the same point. But if you start to, if you do need to be more precise, or if you start to need to run solvers and things, that's totally not a good assumption anymore. So I'm aware of that, and I know when I'll have to start paying attention to it, so. But yeah, I use SVG and the fact that I'm just drawing these sort of diagrams in a lot of cases as a reasonable way to brush some of those problems aside for the immediate future. The more CAD specific and the more industry specific stuff I start to work on, the more I will be tuned into those things. Not to worry, that's one that I know I need to pay attention to. But it's a good point to bring up for sure. Okay. These string functions, I don't like them, but they're so easy that maybe I'm worrying too much about the state of them. So I am going to move on from that for now, actually. Oh, it just feels, and this is a completely subjective thing, it just feels like, so here, I'll give a very simple example. This scale string thing and this translate string, all they're doing is putting the arguments into a certain kind of form. It feels like there's some more general approach I'm missing, but I don't know that it matters, right? So that's all. I don't even know if that makes sense, right? It just, part of me wonders if real programming, it doesn't just move strings around like this, But that's a silly, it's totally silly. It's completely silly of me to say it that way. But so here's another thing, right? I know that there's this function format that I've seen before, and so format seems sometimes like it would be a more readable approach, right? Where you create the string and have these sort of my number is whatever. Oh, that's the wrong. I meant something like that, right? So maybe that's a better way to do it, but I don't know. You think format's not a good idea? Oh, okay. Having the structure available on the Lisp level is an advantage. It's not really more readable. You would use multi-methods for this usually. Oh, right, yeah, so that makes a bit of sense. And it would be def multi emit or something like that, right? If you're using, I've seen that before with, is it the Hiccup compiler? I don't remember. Anyway. Consider replacing these string functions with a set of def with multi-methods instead. You could use the tag data approach like that. It's just fine at this scale. It's 7 functions. Yeah, actually, Lumi, that is the other point in my head, is I don't necessarily care enough right now to change it because, like you point out correctly, it's not a lot of functions anyway. So, I mean, who cares exactly? It's not a huge problem yet. Recommend use maps, not vectors. So I feel like I have no clear argument for it, but sometimes I'm not convinced that a map is always the better thing to use. I'd be willing to agree with you. I just kind of wonder sometimes, you know. Vectors encourage place-oriented programming. This is a very big tangent for a second, but :Z, that's funny. It turns into an emote. Sorry, complete tangent. Rich calls place-oriented programming. Place-oriented programming. I don't remember. I remember hearing that in his talk. But I don't remember what he was referring to specifically. It's really, really bad. Let me write a little note about that. May encourage place-oriented programming. A concept in one of Rich's talks. Look it up again. Generally, you want to work hard to avoid this. This means that maps are probably a better choice. Yeah, so that makes sense. So place-oriented programming, assignment of semantics to places rather than associative semantics. So in this case, correct me if I'm wrong, but place literally then means something along the lines of this, right? Like if you've got tag A, B, C, D, right? Then the place in question is, we know that we always get a certain type of, we always get the same thing on this, right? This place always contains points data, right? Is that kind of what you mean? Whereas proper Lisper would write it as tag ABCD, right, where this is in its own. Then the outer one is actually a tuple. And in Clojure, we work with that as maps. Right. Instead, you would do tag tag, you could do it whatever, and then you would have your data points, right? Oh man, this is not necessarily clear. What was the word you used? Associative semantics. Another possible rep is translate XYZ. Or a record. Let me change this whatever to translate. XX, Y, Y, Z, Z. Oops. Map. Or something like this. What do you have here? Something like translate XYZ. That makes a bit of sense there. Or records, where you then have hash translate. Right. Let's still be sensible. Let me just make sure that I actually wrote it out the way you've got here. Yep, that looks okay. That looks okay. Well, thanks for those pointers. This is definitely something for me to think further on in terms of building out the library to be more and more usable. Hey, E-Try, sorry if I'm getting your name wrong there. Did I use Joseph Wilk CLJ Minecraft for the Minecraft video? I did, actually, yes. That's kind of fun that you bring that up. I was wondering, oh, poetry. Ah, okay. Thanks for the tip, now I know. But yeah, I did use that, in fact, for the... for that video. I was thinking about it. In June I was streaming every single day, and so on the weekends I wanted to do something to mix it up a little bit. Saw that the library wasn't updated in a couple of years. Yeah, it hasn't been, unfortunately. So I was just messing around with it, to be honest. But my point, what I was saying, I was doing the Minecraft stuff on the weekend to change the pace of things, because I get sick of my own same code base, right, if you're doing it every single day. But since I've been doing this for a bit, I changed my schedule out and I haven't really done more Minecraft stuff. But it's interesting that you bring it up. It makes me wonder if I should occasionally sprinkle in some of that stuff into my streams, because that might be cool. It's really cool that it still works. I think it's a great way to learn code while having fun. Yeah, for sure, weekends are an opportunity to explore different things. Absolutely. It's on my mind to maybe sprinkle in some of that stuff a little bit more. You would enjoy that? You just discovered me because of Minecraft and CLJ? Oh boy. Man, now you're giving me all these incentives to distract myself with more Minecraft. But that's cool to know. Actually, that's really interesting feedback. You know, let me put a little note to myself here. You have a 4-year-old and you really want to explore interactive game dev? Oh man, that's cool. I totally get it. That would be a lot of fun. I have a young cousin of mine who, well, I don't know, young is relative, right? He's in high school at the moment now. He plays Minecraft a lot. But that thought crossed my mind as well. He thought it was really cool that you could manipulate the game world with code like that. So yeah, it's an interesting sort of approach. Clojure here. Let me this is good to know. Perhaps a viable quote-unquote marketing approach. I love that you're using org mode for literate coding. Hey, thanks, I appreciate that. Great stuff. Do you have a Twitter? Oh, I do, but I actually forget what my handle is. If you give me a moment, I'm gonna see if I can find it for you. Honestly, I don't use Twitter all that much, but give me just a minute, because there is one that probably works. Give me a moment to look it up here. Let's see. Totally putting me on a tangent, but I'm totally fine with that. No worries. Let me see here. Twitter.com. Sorry. Oh, please. Any distraction it's basically my choice ultimately to have become distracted, if that makes sense. So Clojure, do you do programming at all? Like for work or side projects or anything like that? I am stuck on what my Twitter password was. Ooh, okay. Yeah, you work for Vercel.com, mainly web dev. Twitter.com/Clojure. You know what, Clojure? I can't find my Twitter right now. I'm gonna put in my little notes thing here to find your thing, and then we could maybe connect that way, if you're cool with that. Hope that's fine, because I don't want to try guessing passwords on stream. That's probably a bad idea. You do mainly web dev, but you've been interested in system stuff too. That's cool stuff. Do you use Clojure? I'm not going to evangelize or anything. I'm just curious. Clojure, connect with them on Twitter. They are at Clojure. That's very simple. Yeah, use Clojure for side projects. That's nice stuff. So I'm self-taught, right? And the first language I learned was C++ in high school. And I use the word learned very loosely. We made games like after school, and they were just like crappy, Breakout, Pong, that kind of stuff. But it was tons of fun. Then in university, we learned C, and I was bad at it, and MATLAB, and I was bad at it. Then I started teaching myself Python, and I got discouraged by crazy object-oriented stuff. And probably it wasn't crazy. I just felt overwhelmed by it. So then I started stepping back and looking at, well, maybe there's more fundamental things that I can learn. And surprisingly, I ended up with Clojure as a language that I really have started to enjoy deeply. So that's a very condensed timeline of having self-taught a lot of things along the way, You've also been playing with OCaml. OCaml, I've heard. I've never... I don't really know what it is. Look it up. OCaml taught you a lot about types. It may be useful for learning about types. Always been attracted to Lisp as soon as I discovered it. You're largely self-taught, but you took a quick boot camp to get into the industry. Never got the chance to finish college. Nice. Not the chance to not finish, but doing what you can. Never mind, I'm going on tangents here. Always been attracted to Lisp. As soon as you discovered it in 2012. Discovered Paul Graham and Y Combinator, startups and Lisp and all that. All at the same time. Yeah. That's it. The funny thing about Lisps, or one of the funny things I guess, is it seems to have this sort of like sophisticated aura about it, while at the same time being largely a fairly straightforward thing, you know? Now, so Poetry, if you care for it, I was speaking with the syntax is super minimal, which I really love actually. I speak with someone in my chat. Lumi comes up regularly, and they seem to they have a lot of experience. Hey Lumi, there we go. They have a lot of experience. So if you guys want to chat amongst yourselves about this stuff, don't let me get in the way of any conversation that's going on in the chat, is what I want to also encourage, if that makes any sense. Simultaneously, feel free to chat and talk to me and ask questions too. I love that also, but make yourselves at home, as long as you're, kind and friendly and helpful to one another, I'm cool with all that. But Poetry, I'm intrigued that you found me via the Minecraft stuff. That's planted a seed in my mind about building out a little more attention for the stream as I keep going. So thank you for that. All right. My watch keeps buzzing at me, trying to tell me things here. Oh yeah. This is another tangent. I started doing time tracking. I'm trying to build the habit of time tracking so that I can get sort of a picture of where my biggest time sinks go without realizing it. And I just am trying a new app out, and that's what's buzzing at me. So if I'm looking around all distracted, it's because I'm trying to track my time. And unfortunately, there's no button for times distracted by the time tracker. But that's what happens when I'm looking down at all this stuff. It's awesome. Need to be doing the same thing. Such a huge problem of our generation. By the way, Clojure is not necessarily the most powerful Lisp. What do you mean by that, Lumi? I've seen that sentiment before, and I actually don't understand completely where it comes from, but feel free to explain. And yeah, Poetry, distraction and all of that. It's like it's a hard problem, eh? It's so easy to, without even realizing it, just dash away hours at a time, and kind of a shame. So for myself, I've been trying to hunker down and kind of peek behind the curtains of my own mind and figure that stuff out, So Clojure is restricted because it adopts functional programming idioms so strongly, whereas things like Common Lisp are mutable and completely flexible, doesn't restrict the paradigm. I see. Don't think it's just about the functional idioms. If you look at its design, you'll see the compiler are kept minimal with an attitude that is largely different from other languages. I think the thing that's interesting about I keep saying the thing as if there's only one. What I kind of really like about Clojure is that it's created by a person who is so clearly, strongly opinionated about how to approach software. And think that's a cool way to build stuff. It doesn't even try to do tail call handling, coroutines. Somewhat of a not as clean design around eval, etc. I think these conversations are excellent, and another example of part of the percentage of things that I as an individual shouldn't worry too much about, if that makes sense. In practice, it's still the most practical. Yeah. So the thing that I come to realize often, that many of the features don't necessarily relate to business value. I think Clojure is highly valuable in practice because it adopts so much of the power from the JVM, right? Fast enough, powerful enough. Yeah. All right, where was I? So all I was really trying to do today was clean up this big old mess that I've slowly started to accrue here. So I'm gonna see if there's anything useful I can do yet while we're chatting. How about that, huh? How about that? Containers feels like the wrong word for this. JVM interop's a huge win. Majority of programs simply deal with data and wiring different things up, and Clojure's really good at that. Yeah. Yeah, and so like interestingly enough, it makes me ask the question, well, okay, so what do we actually mean by most powerful then, right? Like, is a language most powerful because it has the most features, or because it has the latest and greatest from computer science? Or is it more powerful because it's used in so many places and it can get you from 0 to functional in a matter of weeks, not years, you know? It's crazy. Love Clojure spec, ridiculously powerful. Language is powerful if it empowers an individual to build powerful things quickly. Some musings on powerful languages. I'm writing this stuff down because it's fascinating. I hope you guys are cool with that. Poetry defines powerful language as Clojure spec is not an innovation, but it's good to have. Love taking notes. Notes for the win. Yeah. I love taking notes as well. Where I start to lose the power is I forget to reread them sometimes, you know? My life's a mess, and not everywhere, but in some cases there's little things that are just like, oh, geez, my own brain is betraying me, you know? What's romeresearch.com? I've heard about Rome a bit. There's org Rome and stuff like that, but that's something I'll look into later. I'm not going to open it up right now, but let's see here. As one that empowers an individual to create powerful things quickly. Personal note, seems good, but perhaps misses out on the idea of teams and some greater than sum of parts design efforts from small teams. Maybe, I don't know. That's whatever. Rome research is written in Clojure script. Stanford researchers and big names have spoken highly of it. I'm intrigued. Written in Seal.js. Cool. I will have to look. I will have to look. So Poetry, if you don't mind, feel free to not chat about it anymore if you don't want, but simple note-taking app? Oh, could be. Poetry, did you find the Minecraft CLJ on Twitch, or did you find it on YouTube or something else? It's way more than that. YouTube. Okay, cool. And like, were you searching specifically for that kind of stuff and it came up? You Googled it. Okay. Okay. So that if I were some like manipulative marketing type person, I would say, ooh, this is perfect, because it means, like, I didn't even intentionally do that, but I almost like optimized for that exact search by default, you know? If you pumped out content and blogs, you'd win that search. Perhaps a setup tutorial. A whole series would dominate. Really dislike the idea of putting your notes into the cloud. 100% no-go for me generally. Is Roam Research a cloud-based thing? Because actually, Lumi, I tend to agree. I don't love the idea of putting a ton of my stuff out on the cloud like that. But yeah, Poetry, part of me, like, I like the idea of that. I don't want to give people the wrong impression of me and what I do, you know? That's the only thing, right? They're working on an offline first approach and syncing mechanisms. Want to keep your data. Yeah, Lumi, I'm actually totally on the same page with that. It's one thing, a lot of you can encrypt stuff, highly convenient to review, it's really frictionless. I find this an interesting sort of frustrating dichotomy, you know, where there's legitimately powerful and useful tools, but it's often really hard to totally trust the entity, right? Especially, you know, imagine that your data is totally secure. It's never going to be secure from the potential folding of a business, right? So there's always potential risk that when you put data out of your control like that, right? I also don't like that I can't script it. That's funny, but yeah, I get it. But the counter to all that is, like, there are legitimately really awesome programs that are cloud-based, right? Like, I can't deny that there's obvious utility to a lot of those things. So I get it. I get why it happens. Hey guys, don't mind me, but I drink too much coffee and I gotta go to the washroom. I won't be too long though. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Let's see. I'm just reading what you guys are chatting about, that's all. Oh, cool. Roam queries using Clojure maps. Huh, cool stuff, guys. Poetry, I think Lumi has a little bit of a point there, right? There is something to be said about like the safety of size or whatever, you know. But you're right, and it is true that anything can go under. But it's like there's like, oh, what is it? Like every year that you live is proof that you'll continue to live longer up until the like age expectancy. So like the longer a company survives, the longer it will be predicted to survive into the future, or something like that. I don't know if I'm making a cogent argument, but I kind of feel like Lumi has a bit of a point there. I think note-taking, knowledge-based stuff is one of those areas where people are bound to have a lot of different opinions, just like editors, just like what languages are good, and all kinds of those sorts of things, right? Because they're ones where it's easy and useful to have an opinion about it for yourself, but kind of hard to necessarily prove one way or another is better or worse, you know? Things are highly subjective at the end of the day. So I kind of wonder if that happens with note-taking stuff as well. All that to be said, Poetry, thanks for pointing this out, Rome Research. I am going to look at it because my own note-taking approach is a little scatterbrained. So I wonder if there's things I can learn from that. So even if I don't use it, it's not useless. Diversity of tooling is a reflection of the diversity of humans. Okay, I'm putting that. I'm quoting that for a moment because that's totally true. It's a succinct way of saying it. There. Thanks for that, because that's exactly right. Man, there's all kinds of useful stuff showing up. Thanks for sharing, everyone. That's really kind. It's nice. I like that. All right. I've got about half an hour to 45 minutes of streaming left in me. Let's see if I can clean something up here. This draw thing is a huge mess. What I kind of want to look for is things that I can just delete directly, because that always feels good. So. Emacs is already a Lispy operating system. Well, that's the joke too, right? About Emacs, that it's an entire operating system. Okay, so let me start at this 3D thing here, because it's pretty messy. Actually, I changed my mind. These two parametric things I'm going to merge back into just a single thing here. Okay, so I have a distance and a line function, slope, parallel. Here, oh, I have this as well. Let me list this out here. Okay, that's good there. Would you definitely go for a powerful Clojure-based Emacs operating system, has a graph database, and that you own as a product and can modify and see all the source? Happy to pay for it. Yeah, Smalltalk and Clojure. Man, I love, so I know about Smalltalk. I've never used it or anything, but the concept of it is just the coolest thing ever. And that's come up in my chat a few times. I love that. That's hilarious. Emacs like OS, but with Clojure. Smalltalk doesn't have the best text editor. Right, but you could make your own text editor, would be the theoretical argument, right? Now I'm just being a jerk for no reason. Sorry about that. That is never like helpful things to say, right? Really? Oh man, this part's not great. Oh yeah, you can make your own. It's like, well, sure, but that's non-trivial too, right? So sorry for being a jerk. That was unnecessary. This actually is now useless. Yeah. Oh, did I Oh, I see. Okay, let me do this. I realize I am mangling up where all this tangling's going. I'm gonna have to clean that. It's not exactly good yet. This was the namespace for param.clj. I'm in the middle of cleaning this up. Save that. Been some work done to facilitate with the GraalVM. I did not know that about that Smalltalk GraalVM implementation. What's the thing called that that runs and checks your formatting and stuff? Is that that's a linter, right? Like when you save? Yeah, linter. Okay. For Clojure best practices style. I'm just wondering because I read through the style guide for Clojure and it says stuff about like how to do doc strings, but if there's a linter, it might like remind me to do that, unless there's something that would be just as effective without a linter. I don't know. Smalltalk. You guys are distracting me with cool stuff. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, parametric stuff here. My tangle stuff here is still wrong. Let's do this. Let's see. Well, let's start by moving the pros, because that's always, whenever I don't know what I should do next, I just do something super simple, and that usually helps me start a little bit further, you know? Like I call it doing the dumb thing first. Just do the dumb thing, and then you can work on the dumb thing and make it less dumb over time. That's the theory anyway. Does it work? Sometimes. It sometimes works. Right, so now this parametric thing is actually, if I go like this, parametric lines, and shift it down, now it's under parametric 2, which I can just name parametric. This is one of my favorite things about org mode, that you can just push things around like that. I do like that, because my brain never puts things in the right order at the start, you know? Really dislike the way it renders Clojure data structures. Oh, that's too bad. Nobody reads the parens when reading Lisp. Actually, Lumi, that is true. Oh, I've seen, or I've heard people talk about, there are some editors, or you can change it so that the parens use a very low contrast relative to the background to render it out, so that it almost, like, you almost don't see them at all. Rendered in a variable width font? That's strange. That doesn't make sense to me. Why would they use a variable width font? Unless, are you talking about like an actual note being taken? In which case, if it's prose, it might make some sense. Okay, parametric lines. Oh, I goofed it. I did goof something here. Let's move that back out here. Parametric stuff there. Oop. Wrong. Not what I wanted. Not what I wanted at all. Okay, parametric. Good. There, okay. Querying with maps is not unlispy, very Clojure-y. So I haven't watched the video, so I'm just trying to guess a bit of context between what you guys are chatting about, so I can't really say anything useful. But that's cool. That's whatever. Actually, notepad. Oh man. So the laptop that I stream off of, it's definitely a good thing I don't have to do my dev work off of it while streaming, because it is slow. That is fine by me. I feel like an old man just slowly trying to copy paste some things for my notes here later. What a goof this is. That is okay with me though. Just copying some of these links so that I can follow a few of them later. That's what I'm doing right now. I forgot to set up like a shared universal keyboard or clipboard, I think. So I'm just doing things the slow way. What have I done? Okay. Let me see here. Sorry, I'm totally not doing anything on screen. That's my bad. Hey, Lumi, what's a projectional editor? I'm not familiar with that idea. Seems cool. Dear computer, please scroll my text all the way down. An old man getting confused at my tools right now. There we go. There we go. Arguably, MS Word is a projectional editor over the XML that makes up a Word document. It's just an idea. You edit data in a visual way, and it synchronizes both ways. So, I'm imagining something like, so I've seen before these apps where, like a web app where in your left pane you edit, like you can type markdown and then it shows you a rendered preview of it in the pane on the right. Would a projectional editor be if you could click the rendered stuff and start editing the text in there, and then the changes there are represented also in the markdown at the same time? Would that be an example of a projectional editor? Yeah, if you can edit the preview as well, it would be projectional. Okay. isomorphism between two data representations. I gotcha. I understand. Partial, yeah. Okay. I'm going to try focus a little bit here. I'm going to change these tangles so that they're tangling into the right file. I'm using a bit of an idea that Lumi provided a couple days ago, where you just kind of put everything into one namespace at least until you know a little bit what you're trying to achieve with structure and stuff like that, or architecture, I should say. So I realized that that's actually a good idea for when you're still struggling to figure a few things out, because it does let you just load one thing in quickly, and you can organize it all later. So I'm slowly sort of shifting things into fewer namespaces unless they make total sense to keep separate. So that's what this is all about. I'm just moving some things into different spots, that's all. That is all. Not a perfect approach, but I'm not perfect. Gotta run. Hey Coetry, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you around, eh? Maybe I'll do some more Minecraft for you, but we'll see. Have a good one, eh? Thanks for joining in the discussion. I appreciate that, by the way. It was a lot of fun. See ya. Sphere rendering. Oh, this I don't think is anything. So let me just delete that one. I love deleting stuff. It's nice. Deleting is good sometimes. Hey Lumi, thanks for joining in the discussion, eh? It's always enjoyable when the chat can start going amongst a few people. That's fun. I like that. So anyone else who's tuned in, feel free to join in. I do like that. Tend to just say what I think. Well, as long as as long as you're thinking, then there's always something to say, right? I think I have no problem with conversations that go and have, you know, whatever way. I mean, of course, if people are starting to get disrespectful with each other, that would be a problem. But you know, that hasn't been an issue, so I'm pretty comfortable with that kind of stuff. So thanks for all of that. Right. So if I just save this. Let me go over here for a minute. List param is still being tangled to, so I gotta find where that happens. Oops. Parametric lines is fine. Specs, little sparse, but fine for now. Sampling. Is sample the right word for that? Sampling. Context refers to setting up steps through a parameterized function and getting the result at each step. Example, a sampled line could go from 0 to 1 t with steps of 0.1 for a total of 10 samples of positions along that line. I'm not sure that even makes sense, but okay. Good for now. I shall leave it alone. Sample 1, sample 2. This feels like something to change. Right, where I've got sample 1 and sample 2, and then sample, if it's got one parameter, it calls sample 1. If it's got 2, it calls sample 2. But it's just relying on the shape of the number of steps that you put in, right? So it doesn't let's get rid of this. This sample implementation seems a bit brittle. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say to myself, so I won't say anything because I'll just end up confused later. Box calculates the cross product of two vectors. brep line. Okay, is this function even good for me right now? Let's see here. My page looks like it's down for a second. I'm just curious if it's still working. If I'm still streaming, that's totally cool, but my chat window just went down for a minute, so I'm lost in the ether. So if you're saying stuff, apologies, I might have missed it. If anyone is saying stuff, I should say. So this here, this axis aligned rectangle probably needs to be fixed. Cylinder. Functional rep cylinder, and it's tangled to draw. We can do that for now. this here. Get rid of this. Tangle that there. Circle. It's drawn there. Sphere. Draw. Okay, let me check if remove param. So now if I save this, tangled all the code. Right, param does not show up anymore, which is a reasonably good sign. Boy, my chat window is so if someone's chatting to me, I really am sorry. I can't see it at the moment. So there we go. Maybe it's normal again. That's what I get for trying to use the laptop. Well, that's my bad, but hey, that's just gonna have to be fine. Okay. So what I don't know is if the whole stream was down or if it was just the window that was off. So apologies for anything that went weird. That would be just the luck of the draw. Okay, so this parametric, things that need a lot of attention. Parametric in the draw section. Geom helpers, it might make sense actually to put stuff like here I've got distance and slope, but slope, see here, this is where things, no problem whatsoever. Oh, okay, it was just it must have just been my Firefox window here then. Sorry, freaked out for no reason. So this distance function is arguably movable to, it's like a geometric helper kind of thing, right? With math heavy work, it will become very important to handle floating point errors effectively. It might be good to use a math library that already exists. I'm not sure how to handle that specifically, but floating point stuff came up, and that is good to have as a note in there directly. So. Oh, I also need to, in the draw, a major, or one thing that this namespace currently handles poorly is distinction. How do I say this? I've got functions that just create a hiccup thing that makes an SVG element. I've got functions that just make and move and manipulate point data, and I've got functions that are like they parameterize. They're like parametric functions, but they're all mixed together. So for example, slope requires a parametric line as the input, but you wouldn't know that by looking. With the right tricks, theoretically you can just import a module and have everything compute symbolically without errors. Instead, rather than floating point, really you just need to redefine every single math function. That's an interesting idea. Let me see here. It might be a good approach to compute symbolically. Would that be so? Correct me if I'm wrong, but in this instance, computing symbolically, is that equivalent to doing analytic solutions to the mathematical equations? There's even a video. That video is actually really interesting to me. If you remember the title that I could search, algebraic transformations. Right. Right, use a computer algebra system. Yeah. That's a subject that I know exists but know very little about, and I think that would be really fun to learn, so that'd be cool. Is algebraic transformations the name of the presentation? Do you know the name of it? I'm not sure if you've mentioned it yet. Once you go past the basics, there's barely any open source ones. That sucks. That's going to be harder then, eh? For me anyway. Oh, I see. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Compute symbolically. Look into computer algebra systems. Depends how much you deal with PDEs and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. I've briefly looked into automatic differentiation. In particular, I think it's forward automatic. I think you can easily integrate with Mathematica. Yeah, I don't have a license for that, unfortunately. Or Clojure libs for that. All this stuff is getting a bit far afield of what I'm doing right now, but it's good to have the notes here. Separating functions that produce SVG that work with lists of points and and that use FRAP, BRAP, parametric stuff. The functions that it's all messy and unclear. But it would be I like the idea of kind of just totally avoiding floating point problems by just symbolically computing everything. That I do like that idea. I'm not currently smart enough to do that stuff, but I do think if I find the right resources and spend the time really studying it, that might be useful. useful set of things to learn. Corresponds to the distance along the line. Function will tell you the distance along the line that the parameter point is. You've used that stuff a lot when doing metaprogramming. It clears up code a lot since you don't have to manually write out all of the manual computations. You just place a few equations or functions or whatever. Yeah, so those ideas are so compelling to me, and I didn't know where to start before, and honestly I don't really know where to start in terms of learning it effectively now, but my hunch that it would maybe be useful in these sort of CAD related contexts is kind of true. So it's something that I'm starting to think might be useful. It's cool stuff. And I like the idea of clearing the code up a lot, right? Like you make it almost as declarative as possible, right? Like, hey computer, you do all the math and get me this thing just automatically, right? A lot of what I'm doing now has, it's not the most functional approach. I know that it's not, and you know, stuff like that would be cool. There is something in programming circles, for whatever reason, programmers really don't like paying for stuff. And all the good tools are really not free. See, I'm not opposed to paying for good tools, but I have a feeling that these kinds of tools will be probably above my budget, which is unfortunate. I don't know. That's just guessing, right? I haven't looked, but it is a fair criticism, right? Like, okay, so, you know, if there's things that provide real value, it's fair to ask for money, right? I'm not unwilling to pay. I am unwilling to pay more than I can afford. Specs, these need work anyway. Okay. I am looking at my time here. There are some tools that are too expensive, but Mathematica is about 100 to 200 now. Used to be in the thousands a few years back. Yeah, if it's only a couple hundred, that's definitely in the range of affordability, so I'll have to look into that. But I'm looking at my time here. I do have to get going. I'm going to have to turn my stream off. Yeah, a little less directly productive, but I'm really happy with the fact that I consolidated a few things. I started rewriting a little bit of notes. I have more notes and to-dos for myself. I've deleted some code, which is always nice. Well, not always, but it's often a good feeling. And I had a great discussion with a few people and got some good notes here. So I'm feeling pretty happy with today's stream, to be honest. I am going to get going, though. thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate that. Thanks for joining in on the chat. I'll be back again tomorrow. I'll be working on a few design projects. I've got some in the works. Might go back and showcase the desk design. Might start something new, which I've got an idea for. I haven't decided yet, but it'll be design work tomorrow. It won't be library cleanup. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. But I'll be back tomorrow. All right. Have a good one, eh? I am going to head out. Let's see. Oh. Bye.